Hi everyone, my name's Dan Draper and welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe and turn on all notifications to keep up to date with the content that I'm going to be putting out, including my podcast. Let's get into the videos. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Dan Draper podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got a real treat for you today. I have the most amazing person coming on the podcast today. It's only Dr. Radha. How are you?
Hi Dan. Do you know, I'll take that. Thank you. It's really lovely to be here. Really lovely to chat to you.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. I know that we've had this in the diary for a while and it's so good to finally catch up. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, that was very my fault. Things were a little bit hectic at the beginning of the year, and I kept saying, "Yeah, I will come on." But yeah, it's definitely been something that we've had in the diary for a while. But no, I'm all right, thank you. I'm okay. Yeah, it's nice that it's sort of summer. I'm definitely better in the light and the sunshine,
Yes,
100%. So
absolutely.
that's better.
Oh, brilliant. So how are things anyway? Because as you said, you've been really busy recently. And I know that when we were chatting before, you were talking about, writing a book and things like that. So how's that going?
Yeah, so kind of got the first edit of that in. So yeah, I'll kind of follow up with news on that shortly, hopefully. But no, it has been. I mean, it's been busy for everyone, hasn't it? And busy in different ways, I think, because obviously some people have had more work to do because of their nature of their jobs, for example, during the pandemic. Others have had perhaps disruption in their lives or been busy with the responsibilities and looking after other people. But I think generally we've all been sort of busier in our minds, haven't we? Because the last year and a bit has just been so challenging and so difficult. And I
Yeah,
think the sort of the vibe that I'm getting from everyone around me is that we kind of all just feel like we need a little bit of a mental and emotional break from it all, if possible.
absolutely.
So yeah,
We all need a bit of respite after
I
it. It's been a long
know,
year.
I know,
Or
I
longer than a
know.
year now, actually.
Yeah, it has definitely. And
Mm.
lots of, I think one of the really important things to do as well is to remember, hopefully as we move forward, that it's going to take a long time for us to all process exactly what's happened to all of us individually. And we've all got
Mm.
such different experiences, such different stories and things that have happened to us that I think we need to kind of really be mindful that we're still looking after ourselves, looking after other people, and trying to be as understanding as possible because this is going to take a long, long time to start healing from, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. We can't rush back into what is the new normal in the sense because, you've seen some of the pictures recently of people in the pubs going a bit mad and things like that. And we just need to slowly get back into some sense of normality.
I know, it's
So,
been
Dr.
so
Radha,
hard.
thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, I really do appreciate it. So, I just wanted to take it back. So, what made you want to get into the medical world and become a doctor?
Yeah, great question. I think for all of us, myself included, sometimes I don't know, we don't think very consciously. I think when we're little about what we want to do. I suppose I was probably influenced a lot by my mum and dad. They were quite academic. They both used to lecture in sort of psychology in universities. They used to write a lot of books in their summer holidays, and so probably I was influenced by them in terms of academic stuff. But then I think really I always loved understanding stuff. Like I always loved learning and understanding how things work. I've got quite a curious brain, which sometimes is a good thing, but sometimes not. And so I think I really enjoyed biology. I really loved understanding how the body worked because it was just so fascinating. I also have always loved people and being around people and teamwork and getting energy from people. So I think I probably put those two things together and natural conclusion then was sort of medicine. So that's kind of really how I thought about medicine and sort of I think decided, but again at such a young age we do get influenced a lot by sort of people around us, don't we? So I think it's when we get kind of slightly older we start to think actually what do I want and what is it that I want to do and what are my skills and what are my talents, and sometimes those things can be sort of reformed or reshaped as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that for me, I've got people within my family and definitely within my close friendship group that have gone through medical training and things like that. So I know how tough it is from their experiences anyway. But how did you feel after you qualified?
Oh, I was really excited. I remember, I mean, 'cause obviously it's a long course, it's the 6 years, to study for medicine, and I think, when you get your kind of your final certificate or your degree and you've got the sort of those sort of 2 letters, they mean the world to you because you've been working so hard on that for not just the last 6 years, but obviously GCSEs and A-levels as well. So I was just really excited actually and couldn't quite believe it. I don't think my friends could believe it either. But I think getting my bank card with like DR on it was probably the moment that I thought, "Oh wow, it's actually real. It's actually happened." And obviously there's that kind of excitement and relief to get through all the exams because obviously there are lots and lots of exams you get through.
Mm.
But then also on the other side of that is the sort of like, "Oh wow, now I actually have to do it. Now I'm like, can I do this?" So like anything, you have that kind of initial excitement, and then you slowly start to understand actually what that entails and what then, you know, your next phase is going to be with any new change in anyone's life. It's kind of a mixture of different feelings.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you mentioned there about, mixture of feelings. In the past year or, coming on to 18 months now almost, how has it been for you? Because, I know that we've spoken about this and everything that you've done with the NHS during COVID, but from your perspective, I mean, it was great for us to stand there and clap for carers and things like that, and which we would always, would always do. But for someone who's on the front line, just a kind of brief overview, how's it been for the past X amount of months?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting, quite a difficult question to answer, I suppose. I mean, I was not, in ITU and doing all those, all of those roles, which have just been absolutely just so challenging and so distressing. Having said that, obviously, I had my own sort of worries in that, obviously there was a virus which we didn't know very much about. We didn't really understand very much. I think one of the biggest things for me probably was worrying about infecting other people. So worrying about my family and friends, and I'm sure that's the same for lots and lots of people. But my main concern really was that I didn't want to bring it back, if you like, and cause any harm to the people that I love. So I think that for me was probably the hardest thing, and still is to a degree. And I think that's the same with everybody. But I think that was the one sort of anxiety that was I found the most difficult to cope with. I think when you're actually sort of going into work, sometimes you get into that sort of work mode, and it's sort of part of your job. But obviously, that's me speaking as someone who wasn't in ITU and wasn't treating, COVID positive patients. So I'm sure people in ITU, frontline workers, people who work in care homes have just had such an even more anxiety provoking time as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head there when you were saying, because for me, I didn't see my family for months on end because technically at the time my mum and dad they were coming into the bracket when the government was giving the guidance, that they were in the vulnerable category, if you like. So I was like, well,
Mm.
I'm in London, they're back in Essex, and it was just dangerous for me to travel. So I didn't see them for months and months and months. And I think that it's really tough because you lose that connection. I mean, it's great, having Zoom calls every other day and everything that's come through a screen, but just to have that human interaction and now being able to give someone a cuddle and things like that, that's going to make the world of difference moving forward, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. I mean, I think, it's that kind of famous phrase, "Our humans are social creatures," but I think over the last year we've kind of really understood what that actually means and how important it is for us to feel close, physically, emotionally to people that we care about. And I think that kind of loneliness, that separation, has been really difficult. And also because each one of us has gone through such different things, we may well have changed a lot in that time. People we're changing all the time, as in terms of who we are, because of what's happened to us. And I think that now we're starting to see friends and family more. It's really important that we start to take a bit of time to understand who they are now, and for them to understand who we are. Because actually, although that sounds strange, say, "Oh, they're my family or they're my friends," of course they know what I'm like. We've all been changed by this. So just
Mm.
stopping and thinking about that and giving time to hear and listen and understand about what's happened to that person during the last year, I think is really important to maintain that kind of closeness and that understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And, people have grown throughout this as well. I know for me that I've definitely seen a different side to myself that has come out of the pandemic, because if it wasn't for the pandemic, and as I've said this a few times, if you can take positives from negatives, I wouldn't be doing things like this. I wouldn't be talking about mental health. I wouldn't be doing some of the stuff that I am. And I've seen so many people thrive throughout the lockdowns as well, taking passion projects that they've had as something that they've had in the background, but they've always had a 9 to 5, and now that's their full-time business, and things like that. And I think now, again, with everything opening up again, that if they were able to take those businesses and put it more in a public space or something like that, the interactions with people, because, as selling things, word of mouth is the best way to do it. So if we can
Mm.
get back to things like markets, if we can go to
Yes.
family events, if you can spread words there, then that's again where we're going to start to build some sort of this sense of normality again, which I'm really looking forward to. But another question that I wanted to ask you is, what is it that made you kind of advocate for sort of mental health and well-being in your career? Obviously, as you said, you've got the medical side of it, but mental health and well-being can kind of be a bit different to the medicine side of it, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. So, I sort of fell into broadcasting a little bit because just through my sister who saw an advert randomly was probably about 13 years ago now, actually. So it was never really on my radar. It was never really something that I sort of meant to do. Having said that, like I said before, I love people. I love understanding people and understanding their stories, and I also like problem solving. So I like I'm kind of, if there's a problem, I'm like, right, okay, what can we do about this, and how can
Yeah.
we make it better, or what can we do to change something? And I also love communicating. Like I've always loved explaining things and sharing knowledge and understanding knowledge from other people and learning from other people. So all those things kind of came together, I suppose, in terms of the broadcasting. So sort of doing some BBC Three programs and then some Channel 4 programs. And then really kind of, it was probably through my role in Radio 1 there that I think my sort of interest in mental health really sort of solidified. I think it was there before, because when I was at school, I was always labeled a sort of a sensitive child, in inverted commas, like
Yeah.
someone who would worry a lot or be very sensitive and have a lot of feelings. And as I kind of got older, I started to realize, well, actually, the way that feelings are framed and emotions are framed by a lot of society is in a bad way. It's like, don't be so emotional, or control your feelings, or you're sensitive, as though it was a bad thing. And I really started to think, actually, this is just not right. This is, having empathy, being able to show your feelings, that's what helps us connect to each other. And then Radio 1 came along in terms of that role on the show there. And I think it just solidified that for me. And when I was, talking to listeners, doing different sort of topics every week on mental health, and hearing people's stories, I just thought, God, the people need this. We need to start really talking about this in a meaningful way and really make it, really make it important and make it matter, because it does. And I think that's really where it came from. But I'm also someone who likes to talk about things that no one else is talking about.
Yeah.
So things like grief and loneliness and all of those things which, we naturally sort of shy away from because they're either challenging or difficult. Um, they're the kind of things that I think, well, you know what, if we're not talking about it enough, then I'm going to try to talk about it. So I think, back then we've got a lot better now, but back then people weren't talking about mental health how they speak about it now. And so I think for that reason, I've got a little bit of the energy of, right, if someone's not talking about something important, we need to talk about it. So I'm going to
Mm.
try.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I'm in a very, very similar vein to you, because I do that with this podcast. Like for me, I'm not medically trained in it. I'm not anything. I just wanted to get conversations started and going. And
Yeah.
it's from that passion of it. And just like you said, I'm a communicator as well. So when we're talking about these things, it's just fantastic just to open up the conversations. And you mentioned obviously there, Radio 1, that's Life Hacks with friend of the show, Vic Hope. Lovely
Yeah.
Vic Hope and
Oh,
Katie
I love Big
Thistleton.
Vic and Katie. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And I do my best to tune in every Sunday for that, because it's just so amazing. And anybody who's listening, please tune into that show, because there's so many different topics that come on that show. It's not just about mental health. You would talk about money, you would talk about education, you talk about sex, you talk about anything that would be on there, and it's just really kind of putting the world to rights. But with, like yourself, with the professionals getting involved and just giving a huge overview, which for me, I love listening to the show, and if I miss it, then I try and catch it up.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice of you to say. Yeah, it is. It is a great show, and it's one of the only shows that I can think of really that gives a space for young people to talk about what really matters. And I think that is so important, really, really important. And for it to be, listener driven. Like, what do you want to talk about? Let's talk about it. And one of the things I think, which is even more evident from that during the pandemic last year, was, because we had a lot of shows which were at very difficult points in that pandemic. That awful uncertainty, and then the loss of life, and all of these things that were going on. And something that really came across even more was that sense of community of the audience, and young people supporting each other. And lots of things, lots of shows I can think about, because before Life Hacks it was called The Surgery, which I used to do
Yeah.
on Radio 1 as well. And there were just so many sort of moments and programs that I can remember and think back to, where I just felt so emotional. It was so powerful, because people were really connecting, really talking about things that mattered, and really supporting each other, which I think is what it's all about. That's what makes us feel valued and makes us feel good, is knowing that someone else cares about us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what Vic said as well. And it's so true. It really is. It's so true. I mean, when you're having these conversations, would you say that, you've kind of come away from that and it's kind of impacted your mental health or well-being in either a positive or a negative way?
Oh, definitely. So, anything that I do, whether that's in broadcasting or just general life, I don't always manage it, but I try to come away and think, okay, what can I learn from this experience, or what can I learn from that person's story? And there've been so many times when I've done a show on there, and perhaps that topic's resonated with something that I'm going through in my life, or one of my friends' lives. And I sit there, I think, wow, maybe this is something I needed to hear right now. Um, Oftentimes when I'm giving advice and I can hear my own voice in my earphones, I'm thinking, I really need to take this advice.
Yeah.
So in lots and lots of ways, but one of the main thing is the power of broadcasting, communicating. People say, "Oh, you're an expert." I'm a doctor, that's true, but I'm not. No one is an expert in being human, because we're
Yeah.
always learning, and so I learn just as much from other people. In fact, more so when I really listen and when I'm doing any kind of broadcasting work, because their story is full of experiences that I may have had some of, I may not have had some of, but their perspective, how they got through stuff, their feelings, that all adds to my own sense and knowledge about how I could manage things in my own life. So I think that's the power of communicating and broadcasting. It's actually helping us share that database, if you like, of like experience, and help each other, which I think is really what I get really passionate about.
Yeah, and do you know what? I couldn't agree more with that, because since starting this podcast, when I've had people on the show and they've had certain mental health illnesses that they've wanted to open up about and certain things, and I would have been clueless previously. So when we're doing, preps for the episodes, or when we're chatting, and I have to Google stuff and I look it up and I look it up all in the NHS website to find out exactly what it is, and it's the education piece as well for me now, because I think that there's so many things that can just be written off as, oh, it's anxiety, like throwaway words and comments like, oh, they're just anxious, or oh, they're just depressed, or oh, they're just sad, something like that. But when scratch the surface, dig a little bit deeper, and like I did with the research side of it, it really has opened my eyes to how vast and how diverse mental health and promoting of well-being can be. And it's huge for me, and I'm ever grateful for it, because it's that constant thing of upskilling yourself as well, and being more aware of what's going on around society. And as we said, with things opening up again now, people's mental health are going to be changing, because we've been stuck in for so long that now we're getting a sense of freedom
Yeah,
again. We kind of need to, as I said earlier, we just need to take it slowly and be a bit more cautious, not only for all of the pandemic reasons, but so that we don't, throw ourselves back into society and, be for it to be overwhelming for so many people.
absolutely. And I think one of the other really important things as well that I've definitely noticed over the last year is just the power of talking and speaking about whatever's happening for you, but and not for anyone else to, yeah, that friend or whoever it is, to come back with an answer, but actually just in the process of speaking your truth, you are then able to then subconsciously start to digest and start to process that problem, and start to come up with some solutions yourself, which I think is really helpful. And one thing that really made me laugh about one particular type moment, it wasn't during the pandemic, but it was before, is I think I was just sitting with my phone, and my phone just suddenly kind of started playing this track from my iTunes, and it must have been a clip of one of the shows that I've been doing on Radio 1 from a year or so ago.
Yeah.
But that bit, and I could hear my own voice giving advice to somebody, to a listener, I suppose. And that piece of advice that I suddenly was played at that moment was the exact advice that I really needed in that moment. And I was like, hey, someone's sending me, there's a signal, as a sign. And the reason I bring that up is because I often, we kind of know deep down what might help us and what might be good for us, and we have deep down those sort of tools, that we can use to help ourselves, but often they're covered over. We don't understand that we have them. We don't even know they're there. And so I suppose my real passion, on Radio 1, but also the other work that I do, is to try and say, okay, well, what have we forgotten? How can we unpick these layers and take these layers off, so that actually we can all discover inside ourselves, myself included, that we have so many things that we know are true about us, that we have so many tools that we actually used to know at one point, when maybe when we were little, about joy and about kindness, and but we've just forgotten them. They've just been squeezed
Mm.
out. So how can we kind of unlearn some of the stuff that we've learned? And that's what I'm really passionate about, is to help people find just how powerful they are in themselves to make changes. But they've just perhaps forgotten, or we've just been told that we don't have them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the world's worst for that, because I will always be able to give advice, but I can never take it, and I can never listen to my own advice.
We're
I'm
all
the
the same,
world's
don't worry,
worst.
Dan, myself included. Honestly, honestly.
But it's, do you know what, as well? When I was doing a bit of research before the show, I know that you do, and you mentioned about relearning there. But you do a lot of work with people like CBBS and a lot of stuff for kids as well, about sort of raising awareness around mental health and well-being. And I can think that from when I grew up, in the 90s and secondary school in the 2000s, for me, mental health was never spoken about. So for younger kids now to have the awareness that we never have is only going to make things better, and it's only going to make people more aware of their emotions and how they're feeling. And it's just, for me, it's just such a massive win. But I know that there's a lot of work that we still need to do within that and campaign for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I love working with children and young people. I just think they're fantastic because they've got such open minds. They're really interested in learning and understanding, and they also really supportive of each other. And so, yeah, a lot of the work I've done has been on CBBC. I did Feeling Better, which was a series with CBBS, which was me in a house with two gorgeous puppets, and every episode was about a different feeling with songs, and trying to understand, basically helping preschoolers get a little bit more comfortable with what feelings are, and and why they might be there. And for me, that is everything, because so much of our patterning and behavior is informed by what happens to us when we're little, when we're growing up. Our sense of self, our sense of self-esteem, all of those kind of things, they start to get formed really early on. So my absolute passion is to go back to that time and say, right, what can we do for children, for young preschoolers, to help them understand a bit more about who they are? Because once we have those skills to understand a bit more about who we are, about why, about feelings and what they might feel like and why they're there, and we have that little bit of distance and awareness, then we can then take that into adulthood. And when, then when life happens to us and things happen in life, we've got just a better grounding in terms of how we might be
Yeah.
able to manage those, and how we can then ask for support and help earlier on if we need it. So to me, that is just absolutely everything. Our psychology, and our mental well-being and our emotional well-being really impacts what we do in the world. And there are so many things in the world that are happening which are related to our sort of psychology and how we
Mm.
feel. So if we can help people with that, then that will make some big changes in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of talking about your broadcasting, obviously you've done it for a few years now, and I remember watching you on This Morning and BBC Breakfast and giving updates and things like that. But also, I remember there was one show that you were on a few years ago, and it was Sex Education with the amazing Anna Richardson.
Yeah,
And she is for me someone who is fantastic as a journalist, as a presenter, because she'll just talk about the taboo. And that's
yeah.
why I really love her, because she, like with mental health, it's still a taboo subject. But, someone like her coming from a different angle on it and just going for it and just saying, do you know what, sod it, it doesn't matter. just go for it. Just release that stigma was amazing. So how was it working on those shows?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I mean, Anna is just fantastic, and I had such a great time with her, and such a great time on those series. Because I think it ran for 5 series in the end, which is just incredible. But yeah, I love Anna just exactly for those same reasons, that she says it as it is. She's not afraid of saying what she's experienced or what she's been through, but also she just does it with a lot of kind of humor as well. And she does it, on that series particularly, just with all those children and young people. Just the incredible questions that they came up with, the incredible questions that adults are too worried to ask, or too afraid to ask. They would just ask them, and that was fantastic, because they just want to know. So that series for me was fantastic. That was probably the second bit of TV that I did, and it's really something that I'm proud of, actually, because
Mm,
I think we really demonstrated the importance of uh, teaching children and giving children, young people, the knowledge they need to understand their bodies, and the fact that it's not just about sex, it's about relationships, and it's about
mm,
that person, and tying those two things in together to make that much more about that individual, as opposed to just talking about the biology. um, and we were talking a lot about body shape, and kind of images in the media that young people are being faced with, or seeing, and how that relates to their well-being. So it was a really holistic show, and I'm really grateful and lucky to have been in that, actually. I'm really And Anna's just fantastic, and all of the children and young people that I met going across the different parts of the UK were just incredible. They really, really
mm.
were.
Yeah, and I can remember watching the series when it was out, and as someone who was sort of in their early 20s at the time, it made me question a lot, and it made me think, actually, maybe I do need to get, something checked out, or maybe I need to just look after myself a little bit more. So from early 20s, Dan, thank you.
Well, actually, Dan, I mean, there were people of all ages that
Yeah, yeah.
I got feedback on, who said, I never knew that. And in my GP work, plenty of people say, I don't know what that part of my body is called. And this is the thing, is that often, and it's the same with a lot of the mental health stuff that I do for children, or emotional well-being, is that a lot of that stuff applies to all of us, whatever age we are. But actually, I think adults, whatever age, can learn so much, because what we're teaching children, and what we hope children aspire to be, is also the stuff that adults also want to be, but maybe they've just forgotten, or they just never knew, or they're too embarrassed to ask. So I always think that things that are made for young people and children are actually just super helpful for people of any age at all. It's just that we feel more comfortable saying it's for them, because we
Yeah,
don't want to say it's for
exactly.
everybody.
And would you say, like, obviously not a favorite, but would you say that there's been a real, in your broadcasting career, that there's been a real highlight that's made you think, my God, like this is amazing. This is exactly what I'm doing.
I think the first time I did went into Radio One was definitely one of those moments, because it was just it was just incredible. It was just like, wow, this is so exciting. It's just amazing to be part of that, and to be part of a station that does really prioritize young people was just really exciting for me. And just to get my little badge, my BBC badge, was exciting. um I think the other thing for me was also the CBeebies Feeling Better program, because for me that was a real milestone. It was finally when um it was being, recognition, I suppose, of the importance of talking about emotional well-being for preschoolers, and recognizing that we need to be talking about this at that age was so important for me. But also that series really reflected everything I'm about. It was,
Mm.
it kind of encompassed emotional well-being. It also included music, and it also included just a lot of fun as well. So, the creativity alongside the messaging, alongside just hopefully knocking down some of the stigma around when we should be talking to people about mental health. It was everything in one big bundle. That was
Yeah.
what I'm all about, really. So I think they're my two moments.
Oh, I love that. And what would you say? I mean, I like to do this quite often, and obviously with yourself. What tips could you give to anybody who may be, neglecting their mental health or their well-being at the moment?
I think sometimes when we kind of neglect ourselves, it's because we feel like we don't deserve it, or we're not worth it, or perhaps we've taken on board messages or messaging from other people as we've grown up, that we kind of have interpreted to say that we don't deserve it, we're not worth that. And what I'd really like to say to everybody is that you are absolutely worth that. So if you are sitting there thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not sure, I'm not really looking after myself, ask the question, why you're not looking after yourself. um, and this is why I go on a lot about self-esteem, and about being kind to yourself. And that gets said a lot, and I'm someone who likes to think about tangible things. So, how can you be kinder to yourself? Well, you can flip it on its head and say, well, why am I not being kind to myself? There's no reason, actually, when you unpick it, there's no reason that you shouldn't be kind to yourself. So, looking after your mental health and physical health starts from that place, I think, of saying, you know what, I deserve to tell someone that I'm struggling, or I absolutely deserve to get some support. And I think that's the first step in saying, I want to now look after myself. I want to be kind to myself. I want to let go of things that I think are blocking my way in terms of feeling that kindness and love for myself. And I think it's just a matter of taking very small steps. I think, listening to podcasts like this where people are sharing their experiences, and so you don't feel like you're so alone. You feel like people understand. A lot of the time, people don't seek help. I think it's because they feel like if they do, they'll be judged or misunderstood,
Mm.
or they'll be shamed. And every single one of us across this entire planet over the last year and a bit has their mental health has been affected. And I cannot, if anyone was to say to me, no, 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 I've been absolutely fine, I don't believe it. So,
Yeah, rubbish.
we we've all struggled. And if you're struggling, then you are not alone. And if you're not alone, that means someone's going to understand.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's in your way of speaking out and getting support is just you recognizing that you absolutely more than deserve to be loved and valued and heard and listened to and helped.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. So last thing then, what's up? What's next for you? What's happening? You've got Life Hacks on a Sunday, BBC One. Make sure everyone joins that because it is unreal. But yeah, what's next for you?
So I get led to projects that just really interest me and inspire me, and I get led to projects that are positive, that do something positive in the world. But also I get led to projects that are creative, and I can come up with ideas because I love being creative and doing things in a fun way. So um, I've got, like you say, I've been writing a book, so more on that later. I'm kind of planning lots of different activities which will be out kind of later in the year on different sort of platforms. So yeah, lots of things bubbling away, um, which I shall let you know about in due course.
Yes.
But you know what,
Yeah.
I used to think to myself, yeah, that kind of question sometimes people get in job interviews, like, oh, what's your 5-year plan? And the older I've got, the more I just think it's such a useless question, because you don't
Yeah.
even know what you're doing, even kind of the next day, let alone 5 years. And I think I've tried to be a bit more just going with the flow of what comes my way and what I'm interested in.
Mm.
So and really just be led by that, and to kind of get involved. So lots of things that are coming. I can't quite say what they are yet, but I'll definitely keep you updated, Dan. Is the short answer to that
Is the
question.
short answer. No, you have some very, very exciting stuff, and I cannot wait for the book to come out. I'm going to be the
Oh,
first
thank
one to
you.
order that. I can't
Oh,
wait. But
thanks.
honestly, it was an absolute pleasure thanking for you to come on. Thank you so, so much, Dr. Radha. Where is it that we can keep up to date with you, everything that you're doing, and yeah, just everything Dr. Radha?
So I'm on Twitter at Dr. Radha Modgill and Instagram at Dr._Radha. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so, so much. Honestly, I really appreciate you coming on. It has been a pleasure chatting to you. And hopefully, I've got a long list of lunches and drinks. So hopefully, we'll be able to meet up soon and we can have another chat.
I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Dan, for asking me to be involved. And thank you for doing such an important podcast, which helped a lot of people, because, so many times I've heard people saying, oh, I listened to so-and-so, or I listened to this, and it really made me think. So I think, well done to you for starting conversations and helping people feel like they're not alone.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But it was lovely to speak to you. And yeah, I will see you again soon.
Thanks, Dan. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.